Yeah. Class is in session. Knowledge unknown is the blessing. Common to fish to ask questions like share, leave suggestions. Power to my people is the message. We've been here before it started. No doubt we the hardest in remembrance of those departed. We are keeping our swords, the sharpest class with skill.
Class with skill. Class with skill. Yo.
Class is in session. Epigenetics is the study of how life experiences affect how genes are expressed without changing the DNA code itself. Think of DNA as hardware. Epigenetics is software. Stress, trauma, environment, nutrition, and long-term conditions can toggle biological switches that influence how the body functions. Now apply that to history. Black Americans did not experience isolated trauma events. They experienced generational continuous pressure systems, slavery, forced labor, family separation, Jim Crow, lynching, redlining, economic exclusion, and over-policing. These are not just social events, they are biological stress environments. Chronic survival stress affects the nervous system, elevated cortisol regulation, heightened threat response, sleep disruption patterns, cardiovascular strain, and inflammation shifts. Over time, bodies adapt to expect danger. And when that adaptation repeats across generations, it creates inherited survival conditioning, not changing identity, but shaping response systems. This is why epigenetics matters, because it shows how history can leave biological echoes, not just cultural ones. But there is another side. Adaptation is not only damage, adaptation is also resilience. The same systems shaped by pressure also produce extraordinary cultural, spiritual, and creative survival outputs. Music, family structures, faith systems, humor, and collective endurance. So the real question is not just what was done to a people, it is what the body learned to become because of it, and what it can unlearn. Because if environment can shape biology, then new environments can reshape it again. Class continues in part 2. Reversing the pattern. Class with Skeul intermission. Take a second to like, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a lesson. Drop a fist in the comments if you're still locked in. All right, class, sharpen up. We're diving right back into it. Class is in session. If part 1 was about how the body learns survival under pressure, part 2 is about what happens when that pressure changes. Because epigenetics does not only record stress, it responds to environment. That is the key that moves this conversation from fatalism to possibility. When long-term stress decreases, the nervous system can begin recalibrating. Hormones can stabilize. Sleep can normalize. Inflammation can reduce. The body begins to recognize something it may not have experienced consistently across generations. Safety. Now zoom back into history. After slavery, Black Americans did not enter stability. They entered a new form of pressure. Jim Crow, economic exclusion, redlining, segregation, and targeted violence. The environment changed shape, but not intensity. That matters biologically, because the body does not track laws, it tracks conditions. Survival mode can persist when instability persists, but epigenetics also suggests something critical. Environments can create downward or upward biological shifts over time. That means recovery is not theoretical, it is environmental. Stable housing matters, nutrition matters, reduced chronic stress matters, safe communities matter, mental health care matters, sleep matters. These are not lifestyle preferences, they are biological inputs. And history matters here again. Despite centuries of pressure, Black Americans built enduring systems. Churches, families, music traditions, mutual aid networks, schools, and creative economies. These became survival infrastructure when state protection was absent or hostile. That is why resilience is not a slogan here. It is an observable outcome. But resilience, shaped under stress, can carry a hidden cost. The body may stay calibrated for danger even when danger decreases. So healing is not just psychological, it is physiological retraining. Learning safety again, learning rest again, learning trust again. If trauma can accumulate, then healing can accumulate too. Class with Skeul intermission. Take a second to like, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a lesson. Drop a fist in the comments if you're still locked in. All right, class, sharpen up. We're diving right back into it. Class is in session. This is the final lesson. Epigenetics forces a hard truth onto the table. Human history does not stay in the past. It echoes through bodies, behaviors, and generations. But it also forces a second truth that is often ignored. Nothing biological that is influenced by environment is permanently fixed by it. That means the story is not locked. Look at the full arc. Black Americans endured centuries of structured pressure systems, slavery, segregation, racial violence, economic exclusion, and political marginalization. These were not isolated disruptions. They were sustained environments that shaped stress responses, family systems, survival strategies, and cultural formation. The body adapts to what it must survive, and it passes forward those adaptations in multiple ways, socially, behaviorally, and potentially biologically. But survival is not the end state of a human system. It is a response state. And response states can change when conditions change. That is the pivot point. Because the same systems that once trained the body for danger can, under different conditions, begin to retrain it for stability. That requires more than individual effort. It requires environment, reduced chronic stress exposure, stronger family continuity, consistent access to health resources, community stability, education and knowledge of history without distortion, and economic systems that do not force permanent crisis living. In other words, the body heals when the world around it stops acting like a threat. And here's where the deeper lesson lands. Black American history is often framed only through suffering or only through success. But epigenetics reveals a more accurate framework. It is a history of adaptation under pressure. And adaptation always carries two outputs: survival mechanisms and creative breakthroughs. That is why even under the harshest conditions, Black Americans produce cultural systems that reshape the entire world, not as a contradiction to suffering, but as a response to it. So the conclusion is not despair, it is responsibility. Because if systems help shape inherited stress patterns, then systems can also help reshape inherited healing patterns. And that shifts the question from what happened to us to what are we building now that changes what comes next. The future is not only inherited, it is constructed. And every generation gets a chance to modify what the next generation's body learns to expect. So the final lesson is simple. If history can live in the body, then so can healing. Class dismissed. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Drop a fist in the comments. And if you have questions, suggestions, or knowledge to add, leave it below. Stay sharp, and I'll see you next class.